I'd like to share today on expectations and how expectations can either lead to disappointments and even despair. And I'll explain to you how that is with a true story in a moment. And it can also lead you into great discouragement as well. So despair, discouragement, disappointment with yourself or with others. How do you overcome that? Where does it come from? What do we do with disappointments? How do we process it so that we don't get stuck and we don't get sort of bogged into the disappointment, so that we get clouded and we can't really see how to move forward from that disappointment? So one of the stories I wanted to share was there's about a few little stories, and I'm changing names here to protect people. Josephine, his mother was a lawyer, and her mother wanted her to become a lawyer. She didn't want to become a lawyer. She got married, had children, and she got into a great job as a lawyer, and huge pressures, as you probably all know. Lawyers seem to work, have high expectations from their bosses to work amazing, incredible hours, which can lead into exhaustion and tiredness and etc. Well, in her case, perhaps that's what happened, because her husband said later on that she worked such long hours, she'd come home exhausted, tired, disgruntled, she'd be late, she'd miss out on the kids. And then they demoted her, and she'd worked huge hours. She'd given her heart and soul into the profession. So she'd put that first, which is, I've learned now over years, it can own us in the end. And in the end, it can destroy us, because our expectation of being acknowledged or successful or acknowledged by our family or whatever, in the end, it disappears. It doesn't happen, and it disillusions us again. So putting the presence of the one who gives us the brains to become a lawyer, for me, is the most important thing. Anyway, as she was demoted, the story goes on, unfortunately, she took her life not long after she was demoted, because she couldn't handle the disappointment and despair that was created from her giving her whole heart, her soul, her life to something that she did for someone else, to please someone else. And it left her obviously so empty and so vacant and so dark. Apparently she was so dark in the last few days that she took her life. So it's a sad story, but it's one for us to learn from. And ironically, I was out gardening at that stage, and I planted all these plants for her, thinking of her and hoping that she had moved on to a better space where she'd find gentleness and mercy, and without anyone having any expectations on her to perform or to do something to be loved and to be valued. And in relationships, we can expect in relationships, we don't even know that we're doing it. I think when I married my husband, who you all know, we've been married forever, we've been together forever. I think when we married each other, I had expectations to care for my husband. I thought, I just want to care for him and look after him. He later on told me, the thing that I hated most about Mum is she cared too much for me, and I felt like I didn't have much of a voice. So I said, well, I've been caring for you. He said, but I don't like being cared for. I just want to be loved and let go of. So I didn't know that. So my expectation was to go in the marriage and care for him, but in fact, I was irritating him. So it's really important to communicate, so what it is in relationships is going on, what the other person is hoping out of the relationship. And how we can love one another, love languages, for instance. And we went through all of that and realised our love language was totally opposite. So to love one another, I expected him to love me in the way I wanted to be loved. But he didn't, that wasn't his love language, and vice versa. So it wasn't until we listened to each other that we actually began to really meet each other in those areas that were total opposites to what we had expected. How do we get there? By loving each other enough to talk, by loving each other enough to listen to each other and to accept that we were total opposites, brought together to learn what was good in him and what was good in myself, and how we could blend and become, to journey together in a way that we would blend together as a whole. And that takes an awful lot of patience, tolerance, understanding, perseverance, endurance for everyone, no matter how good the other person is or no matter how good I am, and an awful lot of loving, listening, and learning from every disagreement and disappointment that you have when your partner lets you down, when they're not what you expect them to be. Okay, so that usually goes in the wrong direction, expectations of people. We're called to love them, listen to them, and learn from every experience. Those 3 L's are important in everything, every situation. So it was funny, in the frustration, as Andrew mentioned, of my relationship with my husband, as he has had with me, because we've been married many years and had to learn an awful lot on the journey, and we have a tremendous relationship now. But we learning how to listen and love, etc. But on the journey, I had to do the 3-way perspective. Now, what's the 3-way perspective? I've learned now how to deal with my frustration and anger in a constructive way by bringing the person, we'll do it in a moment in the meditation, by bringing the person into my mind's eye and expressing all my feelings of frustration and anger when they don't love me the way that I expected them to love me, thinking I was doing everything for them and vice versa. Well, in that 3-way perspective exercise, not only did I get clear of all my negative emotions, I saw my husband with great compassion and love. And just shortly after that, the 3rd perspective was wisdom's perspective, which is our creator. And I got to see that I was doing the same thing with my children. I was letting them down. So your relationships with yourself, your children, your spouse, whatever, your parents, same. So how was I letting them down? Well, I was arriving late off to pick them up because I was so busy involved with people, helping other people, not thinking they knew I loved them, and I'd be late for them. And they told me, and then I realised I was doing exactly the same thing to them as my husband and I were doing to each other. We weren't present and listening to one another. They had expectations for me to be present for them. And we've got a tremendous relationship now, and we've learned to listen to each other and to love one another unconditionally. So the same thing that you are disappointed in someone else could be, you could have done exactly the same thing with another person, but you don't get to see that when you don't clear your emotions and your feelings and beliefs and gain wisdom's perspective. And it's very humbling. It gives you a lot of patience. In other words, you need to take the plank out of your own eyes. So doing this 3-way perspective that we'll do in a moment, it's very handy to do whenever you get stuck with anything where expectations or disappointments or despair or disillusionment happens. So it's a good way to clear it and gain clarity, and the disappointment and despair goes away. And I'll explain why in a moment. So the underlying problem with expectations is it's about my need and my wants, as Andrew said earlier in Andrew's insights. And my need was to have an intimate relationship, but I did it my way. You know that song, My Way? Now, I was unaware that I was doing it my way. I was doing it for good intentions. What are you doing to have your needs and your wants met? And where is somebody disappointing you where they're not fulfilling what you want or what you need? So where are you focused? On your own needs and wants. Why don't you start by asking what they need and want out of the relationship? That's not self-centered, that is other-centered. Have you ever thought of doing that? Maybe they're disappointed in you. Maybe there's something there. You give them a voice, you love them enough to listen to them, and you learn from them, and you get an insight. So your relationship can be better. Never with judgments, never with condemnations, never, ever, ever with impatience and tolerance. Don't do any of this, or ask a question of in your relationships about where you let someone else down, or expectations, or what their expectations are of you. But that's how you begin to blend together. That's where you begin to love one another unconditionally with the help of the one who lives within you. And I don't know how many times I now know that I can't love people with unconditional love unless I ask unconditional love, the source of unconditional love, our Creator, God, to flow through me. Please help me to love them as you want me, as you hope that I would live you. So we've got two things here. That my needs and wants come from what my beliefs are. So that's, I wanted an intimate relationship. It wasn't working for a while there. And my beliefs supporting my needs were that I was wrong in the world. So I was hoping someone would fulfill my needs. So my under needs and wants were coming from my beliefs that I was wrong. I had no idea that I felt that way until I stopped and listened to myself. And I needed to go back and ask for the truth to be revealed, which the beautiful Dorothy helped me to do one day. And it went really deep back into my childhood where I believed I was wrong. And I was very empty and alone. So I was wanting someone else to fill that space up. And I'd made decisions then. So from those beliefs comes a decision. So I had to do all the right things. I had to please other people. I had to make them happy. Do you ever feel like you expect yourself to make other people happy, to please them? I don't believe that is the way to go. You're going to always, in my case, in my situation, and certainly in some of my families that have shared with me, they've said, if you have an expectation of yourself to please others and make them happy, you're going to be left disappointed. I believe I was left disappointed. They were left disappointed because they just wanted to be listened to. They just wanted to be loved, to be listened to. You don't have to agree. You can agree to disagree. Some of the decisions I used to make out of my sense of being alone and frightened was, and I've heard over the years, was I believe that, I don't know, I had to protect and guard myself. And then many people have told me they've made decisions, I'll never get married, I'll never have children. And it starts with I will never. That acts as a block. So you never get what you expect. You never get what you expect because you've made that decision, you're guarding, protecting, you're in control, and that stops you getting what you expect. Now, what's the sort of thing that you're meant to do here? I want you in your right hand to hold out expectations. Just imagine you put the word expectations in your right hand. And the team have done this often. And I hope, Matt, you can hear me too. And in your left hand, put hope. Just actually do this exercise with me right now again. Because then you can let go of your expectations for yourself, for others. And I'll show you what you can do instead in a moment. Your right hand is expectations and your left hand is hope. What I encourage you to do is to close your eyes for a moment. I'm going to ask the spirit of life and love and truth to show you which one is heavy, which one is light. Let go of your hands. Right hand expectations, left hand is hope and faith. Which one is heavy? Let go of your hands and see which one drops. And I was just gently bringing you back because it's only a little brief moment for you to really get in touch with that. For me, expectations is heavy. And a sense of hope and faith in my left hand is light. It's almost fluffy. Expectations is heavy. So what I'm going to do and ask you in the meditation to do is to let go of your expectations, but only after you acknowledge them. All right, so what are we supposed to do? If we're not meant to have expectations, what are we meant to have? And the only thing that I can see that really has worked for me, and certainly worked for Abraham in the Bible, is to have an expectant faith, not in myself. That's too high an expectation because I end up falling over. An expectant faith in the one who's giving me life every second, every moment. An expectant faith, I often do it. I step back, and I step back into it, like the sense of the presence of the one who loves me deep within. And I wait, and I say, take over. Give me an expectant faith in you. I surrender this situation, this person, myself to you. I want to come and I want to, as you surrender, you make room and an empty space to listen, to love. As you surrender those expectations, and then you can listen to the one who will give you hope and will give you a gift. It's a gift of faith and a gift of grace to listen to what he is asking you to hope in and to hope for. So much lighter, so much gentler. What is he hoping for you? And you can take this hope on. And that's what Abraham had to do. He had to hope that he believed that God told him that he was going to have children as many as the stars. He was 100 when he finally, his wife, who had gone through childbearing years, had finally fallen pregnant with her son. And it came to be. So this is a miracle. Mother Mary had a child, Jesus, by the Holy Spirit. John the Baptist was born. She conceived when she was beyond conceiving years. So again, this is a hope in the one who can do things in and through us if we allow. And a hope that will bring us joys beyond our understanding. So what are you going to choose? Expectations in your right hand or hope? Are you going to hope in people? You hope they do the right thing. You're going to hope in yourself. But then you'll have to go back to forgiveness, letting them go, forgiving them, because they will disappoint you because they're not perfect like the perfect one. But you can go back to hope, to the one who is perfect, love, within you, and have a confidential conversation and pour out your heart, your disappointment, your expectations, where you're left perhaps empty as I was and alone, and wait and listen to love and listen to his perspective. So you can have an expectant faith and you can have hope in the one who fulfills our dreams, as Andrew said again, beyond my understanding. When my daughter, as you've heard many times, was almost dying, it's the most profound thing in my life. And I couldn't do anything, having done all I knew how to do. It wasn't until I surrendered to the one who had created her and given her to me that I had seen with and surrendered, that I made space to see his life-giving perspective. Not only did she get better and become a personal trainer and a wife and have children, and I say this especially for Matt, but I had faced my worst fear, which was controlling me. It wasn't faith, it was fear that was controlling me. And we all have fears that control us. We need to face them, look at them, surrender them to the one, and hope, and ask for an expectant faith in the one, and to fill that space full of peace. I love to finish with this. It's Psalm 16. Thank you that you will show us the path of life. Thank you that you will show us the path of life. Isn't that what we all want? The path of life with our relationships. But we're asking him to do it with him. So he is our life force, so that we have less, we let go of the expectation of others, and we can hope that we can end up having a decent relationship with them. We can hope we can be successful in our work, but not so it owns us and controls us and drives us to the point of despair and destruction. So please, before I go and finish as I am going to now, what are you going to choose? Are you going to let go of your expectations through the meditation I'll do in a moment? That will be put separately up on YouTube. Are you going to hope and have faith in the one that is all that you've ever needed and lives within you to fill you up and then flow through you to others? So you can just accept them as they are, which is unconditional love. Doing that will change your life. But you can't do it until you get present to yourself and get unclogged and unbogged from all those negative feelings and emotions, those doubts and despairs and disappointments, and let them go. So I'm going to take you through the meditation in a moment. But for those who just want to watch the video, and for those that are listening to me now, thank you for listening. And I hope that the one tip or tool that I've said to you today, what's the one thing that stayed with you today, that speaks to you, that you can apply? Just stop for a moment. What's the one thing that you can actually put into action in your life? Who is it that you need to let go of? What expectations? And then remember, this is an adventure of life. So as you go on in life, and you can then put all the other things that you learn from a place of love and with the grace that you have within you, which is a gift, not because we're good. That grace will flow through us to do what we can't do, and we will see the wonderful fruits in our relationships, in our life, and our work with ourselves. Thank you for listening.